Welcome, Ultimate Podcast listeners. It's your host, Hunter Heidke, for Ultimate Podcast episode number 4. We have a very special guest today, and I will let him be introduced by my lovely co host, Lauren.
Thanks, Hunter. I'm super excited to introduce Coach Jeff Busby. And Jeff isn't just a coach for the Ultimate Hike in the foothills, but he is also the chair of our Ultimate Hike Leadership Council. So thank you, Jeff, for being here. Do you want to take a few minutes to introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Thank y'all for the invite. No doubt. One of my favorite things to talk about is Ultimate Hike. But yeah, I have been involved with Ultimate Hike for quite some time now. I've been a hiker, coach. I have not only hiked the foothills, but also other hikes around the country as well, and have gotten kind of a sampling of other hikes as well.
That's awesome. What other trails have you done besides the Foothills Trail?
Superior, which was absolutely gorgeous. Highly recommend it. But also Tecumseh Trail. Did that a number of years ago, and also Dolly Sods.
I've heard such amazing things about Dolly Sods that I wish that was still in existence. Yeah.
Me too.
So one day maybe I'll get up there to just hike on my own.
Well, we need to get you out to Shenandoah. I feel like if you've done
Yeah,
foothills for
you're
so
right.
long, it seems like an
Yeah,
easy
you're
enough
right.
trip to come up to Shenandoah. But that's my shameless plug for myself. But
Yeah.
all that experience we think is really helpful, and that's why you're such a great person to talk to in this sort of format, because this is going to be a resource for people who are going to be not necessarily on the foothills hike, but could be different hikes across the country.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
we think that your experience is really valuable, and you're going to have some great perspectives for us.
Well,
For
hopefully
sure.
so.
So, Jeff, what is your personal connection to Cure Search and our mission, and is that what drew you to the program?
Okay. Well, I guess to answer that question, I have to go back to 2011. So my first knowledge of Cure Search came right after my son's diagnosis with leukemia. He was diagnosed January 25th, 2011. Within a couple of days of that, maybe even the next day, we had our first treatment team meeting. And in that meeting, they shared with us, a binder of parent resources that had been put together by Cure Search. Side note, my son went through 3.5 years of treatment, a lot of rough times there, but he is 18 now and doing absolutely fantastic. But from that parent material, there must have been, a learn more or find out more information, type thing associated with it. I must have, given an email address at some result of that, and got a call from a Cure Search staff member, and that led to multiple conversations, which led to kind of an introduction to Ultimate Hike. I have been a avid outdoorsman, all my life in that respect, so it seemed like a really good fit. So 2012 was my first year of doing the Foothills Ultimate Hike. Of course, I've been involved with that each year since then. The first couple of years as a hiker, and then I've been a coach ever since for the Foothills. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I've done other hikes, across the country as well. So that initially, got involved in that respect.
Yeah. We're glad that you were able to find some of the resources that we prepared for you, which is always something that I feel like gets overlooked often. The focus
Oh,
that
yeah.
we like to talk about is, the funding of research, which makes sense. That is the main part of the organization's mission. But also, on the
Mhm.
other hand, we also provide resources for families who are going through treatments, because it's a very confusing time. I remember, my personal story was my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I remember, like, the whole family kind of sitting down at the table, like going over these different resources, because, I don't know everything about cancer. I was a
Yeah.
high school student.
Yeah.
Biology 101 was the furthest that I could get. So a lot of times people come to us not only through the research space or going through treatments themselves, but for utilizing the resources that we provide as well. So I'm glad that we were able to make that connection. And obviously it's been a good one, because you stuck around.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you find when you're training for the ultimate hike, you often have to remind hikers of the impact they're having on the mission, or
Oh,
sharing your story makes a huge impact with them?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And sharing my why, and helping other people to really be able to articulate their why, I think is an important part of the process in that respect. Really, for two reasons: one, to be able to tell that story, from a fundraising perspective, but also, sometimes the miles get long,
Yeah,
sometimes the hill gets tough, and it's good to be able to reach in and remember exactly why we're doing this in that respect. Is that's yeah, a good portion of this from a training perspective is between your ears, and you remembering that why can be a big part of overcoming obstacles when things are challenging.
Yeah, I think that's a good point of people articulating their why. The hike itself is relatively difficult. We're going on long distances.
Yeah.
There's a fundraising element attached to it.
Hmm.
People can find these things to be arduous in a lot of ways. But if you remember, the reason we do hard things is because we have a reason behind it. So
Yeah.
anchoring yourself in that why really helps people get through not only the fundraising aspects and the training aspects, but just being out on the trail with your thoughts sometimes can be difficult as
Hmm.
well. So I think you've got a really good perspective that people can focus on if things get tough when they're training.
for sure. As someone who has participated in an ultimate hike, I often tell people if you can hike 15 miles, you can probably complete the ultimate hike, but at some point you're going to be competing with your mind.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
physically, it doesn't get much harder after that 15th mile, in my opinion, but mentally,
Yeah,
man, it's a journey.
Was it
yeah.
you or was it Anna in our last episode that was saying like she just told herself that my body's going to want to give out before my brain does, or maybe it
Yeah,
was vice versa,
Hmm.
just like constantly telling yourself that you'll be able to make it, no, even if your body's telling you that you're tired. But yeah,
Yeah,
that mental perseverance is something that we always got to work
yeah. I think it's the
absolutely.
other way around. Her mind gives out before her body does. I think. I don't know. Something like that. Both apply.
Yeah.
But so for a lot of hikers, this is probably their first endurance event. Sometimes we don't people have never hiked before, but
Sure.
they're giving themselves a challenge. Maybe they have hiked before, but just leisurely at their favorite national park or on vacation. So
Hmm.
how like what how do you emphasize why training is so important, and what do you do to help kind of build their confidence and mental resilience throughout the process to get them ready?
Great question. And you're right. I mean, even people who are, quote unquote hikers, are generally accustomed to, something in the 5 to maybe 10 mile range. So this is a whole new category. And, even when it comes to maybe things like footwear, socks, the things that had historically worked, for those 5 or 10 miles may not work anymore. And having experienced folks that you can kind of help guide you to other ideas or other ways around some of those obstacles in that respect is extraordinarily helpful. And certainly that the entire process. I've been involved in all sorts of different types of groups, from scouting organizations to other things as well. And this has to be one of the most encouraging groups of people that I have ever been a part of. I mean, it's just unbelievable. No matter where, even when I've gone to other hikes in other parts of the country, it's exactly the same. Just such an incredibly encouraging group of people. So ultimately it's not just me when it comes to that aspect of training. What I see on the trail with our group hikes is, everyone encouraging everyone, because that seems to be what it really takes to put down the miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it really just goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier of like that mental aspect of it is not only for your own personal, self-confidence, knowing that you'll be able to do it with the experience that you have going out on the trail, but then having that backing of the community behind you is so powerful. And it's even an extension of how we feel as an organization of, the
Mhm.
constituency that we serve is the pediatric cancer community. And as long as they know that they have an organization like Cure Search and people like yourself, Jeff, and people like Lauren before she even became a staff
Mhm.
partner, it just shows the community that there's somebody there, hyping them up. I'm wearing my Powered by Hope shirt. So it's like we know
Nice,
that as an
nice.
organization, we're trying to the reason behind what we're doing is because we hope and we care, and that enthusiasm comes out on the trail. And I think that that's what
Right.
makes the Ultimate Hike such a special and unique event.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And last spring, I witnessed something just truly beautiful and remarkable. So during the ultimate hike itself, I typically work through the crowd a little bit, and we'll come upon a group and spend a little time encouraging them and making sure everything's okay and all those types of things. And I came up behind this group. I'm not even sure that they even knew I was there yet, but it turned, and I didn't know any of them. They were all hikers from a different training city. And it just so happened that they all were parents who had lost kids.
Mm.
And oh my, the conversation was just incredible, absolutely incredible on how they were encouraging one another, not just in the hike, but in life, because they had experienced similar type things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think it I mean, you have I know at my first ultimate hike, I didn't have any direct connection, but left with many from
Hmm.
people with similar stories to yours or who have lost loved ones. But I think it's really magical how we all come together, no matter which background or connection you have or
Yeah,
don't have, and support each other.
it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's
Agreed.
awesome. That's awesome. To that too, one of my favorite quotes from my very first hike weekend was make yourself useful doing really hard things with really great people. And I think that
Hmm.
sums up the ultimate hike program. It's not easy for sure to hike, upwards of 29 miles on the Foothills Trail,
Hmm.
but you're doing it with really, really great people who are very supportive, not
Yes,
just to you, but
absolutely.
to the mission and doing something great with their time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So mental fortitude, physical fortitude, confidence, camaraderie are
Yeah.
all part of it. But what about nutrition? What advice do you give to hikers about fueling their bodies during training and on hike day, especially to ensure that they can go the distance and cross that finish line?
Well, I think part of that is starting from a good place. Yeah, if you see me on Ultimate Hike morning, I've got a plate of eggs. High protein. A lot of carbs the night before, a lot of protein in the morning. But even more important is consistent fueling. And what we do in our training hikes, and I work to get people in this routine, is eating every 60 to 90 minutes. You've got to have, whether you're hungry or not, whether you want it or not, you've got to eat something every 60 to 90 minutes. Otherwise, it will catch up with you. It
Right.
will eventually, no doubt about it. There's no way that you can do these types of miles in this type of terrain without sufficient fuel. So starting from a good place and then eating every 60 to 90 minutes. And for ultimate hike day, that means I'm going to one eat that great breakfast, eat well that night before, but uh, once I get to an aid station, I'm going to consume, what I can, and I'm going to take with me, some additional snacks, some additional things that I can eat along the way before I get to my next aid station. So that's the biggest thing. But it's also one of the hardest things because people don't often think about it. If they're not actually hungry, they don't think about it. So getting in that routine during training hikes, I think, is a very important part of it because I'm not necessarily going to be right there with them, on the day of ultimate hike. So hopefully, by that point we've established, that routine, that habit by that point so that they'll be in good shape for the entire duration, of the actual ultimate hike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to that point, we try and make it as easy as possible for people to stay hydrated.
Hmm.
Jeff mentioned the aid stations that we have, at least in the Shenandoah, when we had 3 different aid stations all broken out that have water, the little electrolyte, fizzy packets, all the other
Yeah,
snacks and bits and doodads that you would want to stay hydrated and stay refueled when you're going on the hike. We even have the
absolutely.
little snack bar in the hotel before you start, where people, it's always an interesting and creative thing to see the different types of bags people make. Are
Yeah.
they raisin heavy? Are they nut heavy? What are the
Uh-huh.
different types of things they're bringing? There's even regional aspects to it. Lauren was a big fan of the Old Bay goldfish that I think Ruby brought
Oh,
last year at the Shenandoah hike.
okay.
So it's always something that we emphasize as an organization, is to make sure that Jeff is coaching you up and training you to get this experience during the training hikes, but during the day of, we want to make sure that you have all the resources available to you to be successful.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the hydration aspect is just as important, as the nutrition aspect, and uh, making sure that consume a sufficient amount of water. And I found exactly what you're saying there, Hunter. That also switching that up and incorporating some sort of electrolyte drink, not as a replacement for the water, but as a supplement to the water, is absolutely crucial as well, especially in warmer weather. But even if it's not warmer weather, you're sweating, you're expiring more water with every breath in that respect. So you are losing far more water than you think you are. So you really have to pay attention to your water consumption. And I personally use a hydration bladder, because which is fine as well. I think it's just a matter of what works best for you in that respect. But finding that and using that is what's most important there.
Yeah.
Do you find that both of those things, both hydration and nutrition, are hard for first time hikers to kind of get used to, or even people with like marathon backgrounds, like different type of endurance events compared to hiking endurance events?
Yeah, I mean, most people are accustomed to I drink when I'm thirsty, I eat when I'm hungry, and that just doesn't cut it with this.
No. Yeah. Gotta have those trail snacks.
Yeah.
I like all the shirts that are like, I hike for snacks or I hike for post hike. Those are the best ones.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hiking calories don't count.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what are some of the most common challenges you think that our hikers face, or even roadblocks maybe that mentally they have before signing up and committing or training for the ultimate hike? Like what do you think the most common challenges are?
Well,
And
probably the biggest thing I get from new hikers is that when they first start, they're not convinced they can actually do the whole thing. I get a lot of questions about skipping sections or that type thing early on, and I always tell them just wait before we really go down that road and start making plans for skipping a section or warping. Let's work on this for a little bit. You may be surprised. And what I typically see with folks like that is once we get to those later training hikes, and go back to something you mentioned earlier, Lauren, it usually is around that 15 to 18 mile mark or so that there's a switch that happens there. Suddenly that person who had previously never hiked more than 4 or 5 miles now sees that, yes, I may be able to actually do this. And there's a tipping point there for new hikers where they really do get it and understand that, yes, I am capable of this. I can do this.
yeah, it's going to be a really cool evolution to watch as a coach. Yeah,
Absolutely.
really cool. What are the like top 3 tips you would give to a hiker who's about to begin their training?
Um, I would say that when it comes to hiking, of course, your biggest piece of equipment is your feet. So yeah, and I'm probably on the far end of the spectrum in that respect. I am absolutely positively hyper vigilant about my feet in that respect. I want my footwear to be perfect. yeah, I absolutely positively detest blisters. I mean, they are the scourge. I mean, they change the dynamic so much when you've got pain to deal with in that respect. I mean, it's not only it takes away from that mental focus, it changes your gait, and causes you to expend even more energy and become tired faster. I mean, it's just something that you just don't want to have to deal with. So I spend a lot of time talking about and working with folks on taking care of their feet. So
Yeah.
me personally, my routine is it's the same all the time, every time, whether it's a 5 mile hike or whether it's a 30 mile hike. I use a hiker specific hike developed for hiking type of foot cream lubricant. I put that on my on my feet first. I roll on a sock liner. I don't just slide it on. I roll it on so it doesn't disturb the foot cream that I've just put on. And then my boots are sized to fairly thick socks. Okay.
Mhm.
And throughout the day, I change my socks every 8 to 10 miles, depending upon the conditions. And each time I change my socks, I change them into a thinner pair of socks because our feet swell. The longer we're on our feet, the longer we spend on our feet, the more our feet swell. So that keeps that fit the same, perfect all day long. So taking care of your
Where
feet.
were you my first ultimate hike?
That
I
is
wasn't your
amazing.
coach. I wasn't your coach. So taking care of your feet, but also the hydration aspect and the nutrition aspect that we mentioned earlier. Those are probably the three biggest things. I get some people who are reluctant about trekking poles, and I was as well. My first ultimate hike, but once I really tried them and learned how to use them correctly to get the most out of them, it really, really, really makes a difference. Not only from a safety perspective of having another point of contact to avoid falls and injuries. Nobody wants to be the one that has to get carried off the trail, so avoiding injuries, but also when they're used correctly. And I work with people on how to use them correctly to help propel you forward and put some of that propulsion energy coming from your upper body and not exclusively your lower body in that respect. So that's another probably key element of what we typically do from a group hike perspective.
I definitely agree with the extra socks aspect of it. The first, I got my hiking boots because I wanted to be on the trail for Shenandoah. So I was like, I feel like I need to go break them in. I just wore my regular socks, everyday socks that I wore. Went for
First
about like
rookie mistake.
yeah, just go for about 10 miles. And then, like, the next day, my feet are covered in blisters. Like, I never want to go hiking again. And then that kind of plays into the beauty of having a coaching program is sometimes you just kind of take those licks as you're going to get your experience. Obviously, Jeff has such a regimented system because he knows what works for him because he's been on so many hikes. So that's what we want to accomplish, not only with the coaching system, but encouraging people to just get out during the training or for different training hikes. But I was curious, Jeff, you've with all the different hikes that you've been a part of, we'll say socks aside, do you have a specific piece of like hike gear that you know that you just can't live without?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
We ask hard-hitting
So
questions on this podcast.
yeah, yeah. So
This is
in
an
the last
interesting one too. So
Hmm. Well, I would say in the last few years, one thing that has been a real game changer for me personally, and I recognize that this isn't necessarily the answer for everyone in that way, but for me, early on, one of the things I struggled with was knee pain and hip pain. And the one thing that has completely changed the game when it comes to that has been zero drop barefoot type shoes.
mm,
For whatever reason, that has worked very, very well for me. I can feel the impact that it has on my gait and helping correct that because I've known that I have issues with that. But those really, really do help me to improve my gait, which minimizes that knee pain and hip pain that I had historically had.
We've talked a lot about the individual hiker and how they can train and nourish and hydrate their body. But one of the things that we've already talked about being unique is the camaraderie and the community aspects of it. So when it comes to like different team dynamics, because obviously we encourage all hikers to either join a team, create your own. Hiking with friends and family is always way more fun than hiking it by yourself. But if you decide to do it by yourself, know you're going to be surrounded by great company. But
Yeah.
when it comes to like the group dynamics evolving, you touched on a little bit that flip being switched to have people once they realize that they're able to do it. Are there other aspects of team dynamics that stand out to you that just like are a little bit extra rewarding?
Yeah, it's always neat to because typically, with each training group, I typically have a mix of alumni hikers and new hikers. And one thing that I find kind of neat is hearing those alumni hikers share their story and encourage, a new hiker in that respect. It's one thing when it comes to from me, it's sort of expected, but it's always neat to hear the perspective of alumni hikers as well. And I think that really helps that dynamic that you're speaking about. That we may be in different places with this. We may have come from different angles to it, but we're all in this together.
Mhm.
What about people who in the team dynamic, because I've experienced this through my training, someone like your hiking pace and building they want to get out there and train with the group, but they're just nervous that they're going to slow you down.
Well, my situation is a little bit different in that respect because I have the advantage of one of our virtual coaches is also here in town.
Nice.
And he and I have been hiking together since 2012 and are very good friends. And he typically, comes to, those hikes. And I've got some very seasoned alumni that are very coach worthy in and of themselves. So it makes it, very easy, if necessary, to have, a coach in the front, coach in the back, coach in the middle, and be able to support and encourage people at different speeds in that respect.
Mhm. Yeah, we really mean it when we say that any hiking experience are welcome on the trail. Jeff touched on warping a little bit earlier, is what we call moving from one aid station to another, or moving to the end of the hike trail. And there's no shame in that. Sometimes people twist an ankle early on and they just can't finish, but we want them to be there to celebrate with the rest of us at the end of it. Sometimes people find it to be a little emotional for them when they step on the trail and
Yeah.
just want to take some opportunity to spend time by themselves. And that's totally valid as well. So regardless of your experience level, as Jeff said, we have groups of people who are willing to wait for you, regardless of whether
Absolutely.
or not you feel like you can or cannot make it. We know that you can, and we'll
Yeah.
make sure that you
Ultimately, I think I speak for all of us. And at the end of the day, my goal for the group hikes, as well as, of course, the actual hike event for Ultimate Hike, I want to make this something safe and meaningful for each and every person. That's my ultimate goal.
when it comes to you as a coach, obviously these is something you've done for many, many years now, and you've already touched on a little bit the rewarding feelings that you get from people becoming full-fledged hikers or connecting to the mission. What would you say is like the most rewarding process of seeing the hikers tackle the trail? Is it the confidence that they have in themselves? Is there something specific that you see?
Um, I guess the biggest thing that comes to mind as far as hike day is concerned is being there in that last 100 yards.
Hmm.
Being there in that last 100 yards with all the signs and all the pictures of all the kids that we're doing this for, and seeing, all that hard work that each of my hikers have put in to get to this place. And then seeing all those pictures, it really seems to hit home with people the why. And that it's not just their why, but a lot of whys.
Mhm.
And it's important. Uh, and what we're doing here is important.
Mhm.
Yeah. So many. And it's emotional, I think, for everyone,
Very,
even if
very.
you've seen it before, but
Yeah.
especially first time hikers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody's listening to this. Of course, we have to hypothetical question. New hiker listening, loving all the advice that you're giving, Jeff. There's no way that they couldn't love the advice because you're an expert. And there's something, there's a pit in their stomach. They're just not sure if they're ready to take the leap. What would you say as an experienced hiker and coach to kind of get the people over the edge and encourage them to take that leap?
Come try it. Come try it. I've got folks that are doing that this Saturday that are coming on a group hike with us so that they can experience, not only what we do, but the community in which we do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part of that is once they see it and they experience it and they understand, yeah, I'm not doing this by myself, and I've got a lot of expertise right there to be able to, do this and do this successfully.
That's awesome.
And answer all the questions and remind you to change your
Yeah,
socks and eat
yeah,
and drink.
that's
And
what we do.
are there any cross
Okay.
training advice or like things you encourage hikers to do in the interim weeks that they're not group training and things like that?
Yes, that is a great question because you're right. At the end of the day, the group hikes are very, very important. They're definitely an important part of this in that respect. Not only from the physical training aspect, but having the expertise to overcome hurdles with blister prevention or whatever. Having that right there in the moment is fantastic. But from a physical training standpoint, your weekend is to be sufficient in and of itself. It's going to be a huge part of things, but not sufficient in and of itself, really. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I could put together what I might call the perfect training plan, but instead of doing that, usually what I do is work with each individual person. What do you like to do? And if they're a cyclist, they really enjoy that, then we'll build it around that. I would rather put together something that may not necessarily be absolutely positively perfect, but you'll do it. And that to me, that's the key. Will you do it? So if we can come up with something that will work, but most importantly, be something you will actually follow and do, based on your time, what resources you have access to, those types of things, your interests. I would much rather put together something specific to you that you'll actually do than advertise some sort of perfect plan. But yes, the training in between group hikes is absolutely positively important.
Yeah. What do you do for training in between hikes?
Oh my! Well, I'm year round. I'm year round. So in the mornings at 4:44 a.m. I roll out of the bed for a run. I've been doing that for a very long time. It's now 4:40 a.m. 4:44 a.m. for a specific reason because I take my dog with me, and we have a neighbor who takes their dog at 5:30. So we have to be done so that they don't run into each other because they're not very good friends. So that's why it's 4:44 a.m. And so that's in the mornings. And then I have a strength training routine that I do at home because for me personally, getting things together and going to a gym, that adds another hour and a half to, and my biggest thing is the time. So,
Yeah,
I have everything that I need here at home, and I do that strength training routine, 2 nights a week, along with the running in the morning, and that keeps me where I need to be.
That's
that's
awesome.
awesome.
The story about the dogs, I was hoping it would be a happier ending where you want them to meet before they go on
No,
different hikes, but
no,
avoiding each other
no,
is, I think, a little bit more
no.
funny.
There's
Awesome.
always like little things you can do too. Like it seems silly, but I do squats like when I brush my teeth or I'm a mom, I'm busy, I work, I do
Yeah,
all these things and I love being out on the trail, but I can't always go out and I walk my dogs. I try to walk my dogs every day.
okay,
They sure
okay.
let me know when I don't. But you don't always have that time every day to incorporate in there. So I do little silly things, and I think it makes a big difference with doing squats when you brush
Mhm.
your teeth or every time you go to the bathroom, commit to those
Yeah,
25 spots or whatever it is that are parked further away everywhere you go. Just get in those steps and
yeah, yeah. Just
you know,
taking the stairs.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep. You have to have the Anna kind of said it too, but really you have to have the buy-in to like the fundraising, the mission, and to the training and really commit to it. And we really, I think, do a good job of helping people prepare through our coaching
Hmm.
program, through our fundraising resources, through all of the staff and community support. Because we have
Agree.
amazing people like you who are so committed to the program and our hikers and getting people ready. So thank you for sharing all of your expertise and knowledge with us today. I shamelessly wish you were my coach in 2019 for my first ultimate hike. But Hunter does have one last final question for you that we ask
Okay.
everyone.
What do we
Okay.
call it? The ultimate question, which is, what is your favorite memory from a hike that you've had? That
Oh,
we get the same reaction from everybody. It's so there's so many things that go on through people's brains. It's hard to nail down just one.
Yep.
um, the very first ultimate hike that I was on, it was on the foothills, and the whole last 100 yards with the pictures thing was not something I was aware of.
Mm.
I didn't know that we did that,
Yep.
so it was quite a surprise, and that memory definitely made an impact. I mean, yeah, that's a sort of a tough memory, but definitely a very very strong memory. That first ultimate hike, I remember, on Friday evening, people talking about their stories, and when you see those pictures and that last 100 yards, you remember all those stories. These are the kids that they were talking about on Friday, and it makes it very very real, when you know the story and you see the picture. So that's, it's not silly, it's not necessarily funny or entertaining, but that's probably been the most impactful memory that I have when it comes to
Yep.
ultimate
And all of a sudden, all that hard work was worth it, right? Makes
Yeah.
me tear up just even like thinking
I
about
know,
my
right?
first time crossing the finish line and so many signs that I've helped put out and all of that and just yeah, it drives it all home for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
we appreciate you sharing that, Jeff. As much as we try and make things fun and light, we do have a very serious mission. So we're
Hmm.
glad that was something that impacted you, and that's something that we try and do for any hiker. So if anybody is listening to this, maybe your first hike, we have a strong core memory like Jeff has.
Yeah,
So we encourage everybody to join us. But thank you again, Jeff, for being here. Thank you for being a part of our organization, for partnering with us in the mission. Thanks for being a coach and a hiker. And we look forward to seeing you on the trail for many more years to come.
absolutely. Good stuff. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
We'll
All
see
right.
you soon.